He's getting it. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here. Episode number 27. Come
Dang.
on with it.
We're approaching that 30 very quickly. And hey, those dance moves were just for you that requested it. There you go. You're welcome. It'll never be seen again, but
I love
there
it.
it is.
I love it. I saw the idea flashing through your eyes. You were like, am I doing it? Am I not doing it?
Oh,
We're doing it.
I sent it. It's full send today.
Guys, so it's a special treat for those of you who tune in and catch us in the video version. We're always trying to do something special for you just as well as the audio listeners. Brad, how are you doing today and during episode 27?
Doing good. It's November already somehow, and a lot of things rolling. We're working with a bunch of new sponsors on the YouTube channel and on the podcast. So getting all that organized, coming back from the CTUV buzz drop, all that's out and ready to go. So just trying to get some stuff ready for the holiday season. New merch, new discs, mystery boxes, you name it. It's all coming on Black Friday. So heads up on all that.
I guess, yeah, as a retailing business, Black Friday almost feels like more important than Christmas in terms of what you got to prepare for.
Same. Yeah, definitely true. So yeah, working on that. And, our weekly here that we do at Foundation, today is our last day of like the quote unquote, like summer and fall weekly. So wrapping that up today. And then we're starting a new kind of fun morning weekly that we're going to be doing during the winter when daylight's a little scarce. So playing the same course like 100 billion times and pretty level playing field. So hoping to walk away with that.
Dude,
maybe three tag is a good goal for me.
That's fair. Maybe what I'll do is I'll send something to the office for y'all today, and I'll just request that it has food poisoning in it, and you'll know. Yeah. Don't eat it, but they won't.
Exactly. That's a good plan.
That's not me saying on the internet that I'm trying to poison two people. Don't hear that, internet.
No, that was never said.
If it happened, it might. So anyways, we're not trying to poison people. We are trying to bring good news here. And we have a special guest today for you. Mr. Colby's going to be joining us. Why don't we go ahead and bring him in?
All right, let's bring him in.
Joining us all the way from the Carolina of the North, Mr. Colby. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Dude,
for sure.
Happy to have you on, man. It is going to be a phenomenal time. We want to make sure that our guests get to know you and get to know your game a little bit. You might be one of the furthest throwers looking at your application that we've had on the show. So this will be a fun test, a little different for some of you more big arms out there. Colby, tell us backhand and forehand distance. What's your comfortable golf distance?
Well, backhand, I like to think I throw decently far. I'd say 425. 425 to 450. 450 is like if I get a good amount of turn on it, but I feel pretty comfortable in that distance. That's a good golf distance for me. For forehand, not quite as much, obviously, but comfortable, like 350, maybe 375 if I get some turn.
Okay. Dude, awesome. I love it. That's I'm telling you, it's off-season goals for me personally to make sure that I'm getting that 450 range.
Yeah, I was pretty obsessed with throwing far when I first started, so I worked really hard on that.
Okay. How long have you been playing?
A little under 2 years. I started at the very beginning of 2021. Some friends got me into it, so I've been playing a lot. So
I remember when I discovered it when I was a junior in college, and we were basically playing literally because here in the South, it's not like it gets super cold, so you really can play pretty much every day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I try to.
That is awesome. Well, okay, so that is the big distance. Let's talk short game. We set you up on a putting green. We've got 15 feet, 25 feet, and 40 feet, 10 putters at each. How many are you making from each place?
Well, sorry, I have a tournament coming up, so I've been doing a lot of putting practice, so my numbers might be a little higher than usual. But from 15 feet, I'd like to say I'd make all of them, but I've missed plenty of 15-footers. From 25 to 30 feet, I'd like to get like 7 or 8. And then from 40 feet, maybe like 2 or 3. But I've been practicing a lot lately, so my numbers might be a little higher than usual.
Okay.
Great.
Colby, we don't normally ask this question, but I want to. You mentioned you have a tournament coming up. I'll do the last question, our normal question first, and then I have a follow up question that's a little different. We're going a little off script here, Brad. At 27 episodes in, we got to shake things up.
Mm-hmm.
So, our normal final question, Colby, is what would you say is the biggest strength of your game?
My biggest strength would probably be my driving. During tournaments, I get the worst putting yips, so it's hard to say that's a strength of mine. But definitely off the tee and then, throwing far, but you don't really get the opportunity to throw far a lot in Charlotte, so.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's knowing a bunch of Charlotte disc golfers, there are certain courses that seem like it could favor you for like 3 holes, and then it instantly is just like, oh, okay. No.
Yeah, I don't get a lot of I don't get a lot of advantage by throwing far out here.
Totally fair. So you mentioned you got a tournament coming up. What division do you play in when you play in events?
Well, I play like MA1 or Open, kind of depending on the tournament. I got my first MA1 win this summer, so I've been kind of trying to play Open, but it kind of depends on the size and strength of the field.
Okay. Awesome. Do you tend to, are you one of those guys, and I'm going full honesty here, Colby, I'm diving deep. Are you one of those guys, because we have some local guys that, for instance, when the open field gets stacked, they really love to play for the competition side of it rather than like, hey, I just play this division. So when they see the open field get really stacked, they drop to MA1 because they want to be chasing a win rather than like, hey, I'm just going to like barely be competing for the cash line.
Yeah.
What kind of category do you fall into?
I actually would consider myself the opposite. If I see like really good pros, and we have really good pros here, I definitely want to try to compete against them. I played a tournament that had MJ in it, and I was like, I got to play Open if MJ's playing in it. So
nice. And he's throwing like 375 max, just carving
absolutely.
up some wood lines.
Yeah, he destroyed me.
I love it. Okay, cool. Well, Colby, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for being vulnerable enough to share all that. Like I said, you had said you'd listen to all of it. Not normal questions we ask, but I know that the longer this podcast goes on, the more competition that we're going to see amongst our listeners. And so I want to, there's like this weird stigma, Brad. I don't know if you've noticed, because I know, Brad, you're not playing like a ton of tournaments yourself, just weeklies and stuff.
Yeah. I've only played 2 tournaments, but I think I know the question you're going to ask. It's like, where's the line on like what division you're competing in? Is that kind of where you're going, Robbie?
Yeah.
I was thinking, it's kind of a weird spot for me, even because I've been playing, 2 years now. I've only done 2 tournaments. I don't really compete regularly, but I feel like I'm almost in a position where I'm working in it. I'm throwing more. I'm playing weekly. So it's like, do I compete in MA3 or MA2? I don't know. So I kind of feel weird there on what to choose.
Yeah. I mean, the divisions themselves, and next year the divisions are going to have different names anyways. So
right.
It's a wild time, y'all. Well, this isn't a PDGA podcast. We'll save that for Grip Locked. This is a In the Bag podcast. So, Colby, let's talk about your bag, man. We're going to start with distance drivers and work our way down. So, talk me through. When you look at a bag initially, you can always kind of assume some certain roles, especially once you get someone with sort of your arm speed. Discs kind of slot into what they naturally do. So, looking at the Grace and the PD2, I'm assuming those are the extreme ends of your bag?
Yeah, my PD2 is definitely my most stable distance driver. And my Grace, I wouldn't say it's super flippy by any means. It's really good for my forehand, but if I am throwing a roller, it's with the Grace. But I got to crank it over.
Okay. If you don't mind me asking, what run is your Grace?
I couldn't tell you. I can show you it.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it was like a first run or anything, or if it's one of the.
No, it's an Orbit Grace, so it's a little bit more stable.
Okay.
Than the regular one.
Perfect. So that's because some of the first runs, the blue first runs were crazy flippy, but the orange first runs were like about what the Orbits are.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
it's always like when I hear someone like, oh yeah, I got a pretty stable grace. I'm like, which one is it?
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
so fascinating. That's why I would compare it most like to a wraith, is because of that stability difference. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I
then we get
agree.
to the middle of your bag, and you've got some DD3s and a Raider in there. What's sort of the shot difference between those three?
Okay, so my Raider is kind of like my max distance disc. It still has some stability, so I like to throw it on a little bit of hyzer, pop up, turn, and then finish. And then my green DD3 is pretty similar to that. I'd say a tick more reliable. It's just nice to have like two distance drivers that pretty much match your arm speed very well. And then my Cloudbreaker 3 is a white Cloudbreaker 3, and those are one of the most stable colors. So that's my a lot more like reliable distance driver.
Okay, so what would be the difference between your white DD, your white Cloudbreaker and the PD2?
The PD2 is just like super duper overstable. I mean, I don't even know if I could throw it 400, but with the white Cloudbreaker, I can still get good distance while still having reliable fade.
Okay, totally fair, totally fair. I mean, that makes a ton of sense, and I love that even having 500 or 400 feet of distance, 425 of distance, that you still only have five pure distance drivers in the
Yeah.
bag. I find that to be super curious. Would you say that's partially because of the fact that living in Charlotte, you don't get the chance to throw those big shots that often?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I there will be a lot of times I'll go to a course and not be able to throw a distance driver at all. So
I
Okay,
see that.
so you make up for that with the much larger spread of fairway drivers that you have
yes,
in your bag.
yes.
So let's talk through those on the. We'll start on the stable side of things. How does the Nordic Phenom fly for you? That S line PD.
So I've thrown other people's, but mine I think is a little bit more stable. If I throw it on hyzer, it'll maybe flip up a bit. It'll never think about turning and then hyzer at the end. It's a pretty reliable overstable PD, but not like one of the C line ones that were just ridiculous.
Basically a PD2 and a smaller rim.
Yes, absolutely.
Totally fair. Totally fair. So that sounds to me that sounds a lot like your Vulture, Brad. That like
Yeah.
reliable
Yeah.
fade.
Yep. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Okay. So right below that, you've got basically three of the common overstable 9-speed tropes, and you have all three of them.
Yes,
So
yes.
walk me through why that be.
I figured you guys would ask because it is a little odd just seeing all three, but I'll explain it. So my flippiest one is my blue Z Flex Raptor. It's beat in pretty good, so if I throw it on forehand, I like to throw my forehands on hyzer. It'll like flip up a little bit and just really get that pushing flight and maybe hyzer out at the end. My FD3 is a lot more reliable. I'd say it's kind of like my Goldilocks between the three. It has decent fade, but it's not dumping by any means. And then my Firebird is a Glow Marweed Firebird that's just super flat and is ridiculously overstable. It's almost like utility disc more than anything. Like I gotta throw like a
Okay.
tomahawk or something, or like needs a really hard skip.
Interesting. So it's not necessarily, it doesn't sound like it's a love of eating one particular mold.
No.
Maybe the flatness of that marweed, but it really is just you have either did they all come into the bag at different times and you've just kind of like seasoned them into that state?
Yes, yes, for sure. I would say before I was a really big Raptor thrower, so that's why I had that Z Flex Raptor. But I kind of fell in love with the FD3 feel. So
Okay. So waiting for those Italian FE3s to hit the market.
yeah,
Colby, have you thrown a fireball from MVP?
I have not. I can't say I've tried a lot of MVP plastic yet.
The Terra is another good one. They're both like really overstable in like the control fairway slots, and they're for me, extremely overstable board flat, both of them, just off the shelf, and at least in the Neutron plastic. So if you get a chance, try one of those out. I would be curious to see how you think about those.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into that.
Yeah, because I think that definitely could be the first like major area that you could find some more like subconscious confidence is once you find more FD3s when they become actually available again, right? Or leaning into another Raptor and maybe a cap wrap. Because the cap wrap's like my memory of the cap wrap is it's relatively flat, right?
I will say I actually had a cap wrap for the longest time, but this glow marweed fiber is a lot more I wouldn't say a lot more overstable, but it is more overstable than the Captain's Raptor, which was kind of the slot I was looking for.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. I respect that. I had a cap wrap in my bag for like 3 months, if that. So I am by no means, when it comes to Discraft, I instantly just say, all right, I am usually not an authority on this whatsoever. So happy to learn. Yeah, but I think you could definitely find some combination there. Once again, with the FD3, it's a tough sell just because then you're either hunting the really expensive Innova ones or we're waiting for the Dream Italian. But
Yeah.
I feel like most of the stuff in the Italian plastic has traditionally come out pretty stable.
Yeah, especially the green.
Yeah, I got one of the Metal Flake ones from like the European Open, and they said they were a little bit more straight, but even mine's pretty stable. But that's what they said about it when they came out with it.
That's fair. Okay, so let's move to. I don't want to move all the way over to the Undertaker and the Passion just yet. You got 2 T-Birds just chilling right there.
Yes.
So
yes.
what do the T-Birds do?
Well, I do have 2 T-Birds, and I love the T-Bird mold. I'm kind of trying to beat one in to be kind of like that Passion, but I'd say my more understable T-Bird is not really understable by any means. If I throw it with a little bit of hyzer, it'll push for a really long time straight, and then maybe tiny bit of fade at the end. My other T-Bird is a lot more overstable, just a lot more trustworthy in like the wind or if I really need to get left.
Okay. So when are you leaning on that T-Bird versus perhaps like that Z-Flex Raptor?
The Z-Flex Raptor I don't love for backhand, and it's also a little bit faster because I could easily just go like way past the gap I'm going for with it. But I really just don't use it for backhand too often. So
Okay. So when you need that backhand hook, are you moving to the Firebird, or is that where the Phenom comes in?
So for the backhand, I actually really like the FD3.
Okay.
Just it's pretty reliable if I'm just trying to go straight into the left. But I will say the T-Bird's not quite as stable as like those faster 9 or 8 speed.
Okay. So does it fly just in a shorter form than the PD a little bit?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. Awesome. So, okay. So with the T-Birds in that slot, then you jump over to the Undertaker and the Passion. What are those doing for you?
So the Undertaker I have is from the Tour Series last year, and it's honestly pretty overstable for an Undertaker. And even like if I'm trying to mash it, it's not really going to finish right.
Okay.
So I'm not in love with it, but I needed like a straight control disc for the woods out here. But the Passion is kind of more like flip up turn for me. It's one of the glow passions from USCGC this year. I've been loving that thing. So yeah, it's been a good woods disc for me.
Okay. So have you thrown, because I'm seeing a lot of Discmania in the bag. Have you thrown one of the new C-Line FDs? I say new. They're like
Yes.
8-year-old at this point.
Yes, I do. But I feel like it had a little bit of overlap with my T-Birds, and I just love the T-Bird a lot more.
That's totally fair. I was just trying to think of like, when I hear someone say they're not in love with a disc in their bag, it instantly goes to like, okay, so why is it in there?
Yeah.
But I think that the T-Bird, what plastics did you say your T-birds are in?
They're both in Star. One's Whirly Star. It's one of those Nibo ones.
Okay.
But
I'd wonder, like, man, I'd be so curious if there is like a G-Star T-bird or something you can find that would very quickly hit that Undertaker slot and then also turn into a passion, because I feel like I want to say there was a run of G-Star T-birds recently that we saw come through our shop. I don't know, Brad, do you remember seeing anything like a G-Star
Yeah,
T-bird?
yeah. I was just looking because I swear we had some. I could be mistaken though. I might be thinking of the Hawkeye.
Yeah. Have you thrown any G-Star stuff, Colby?
when I first started, I had a G Star Thunderbird that I used to love.
Okay. Yeah, if you're a Star fan, I think G-Star is a really fun plastic to throw and gives you that extra understability without feeling like you've jumped all the way to a DX or something like that.
Yeah.
So I could for real see a world where you basically like you get these new FD3s, you fall in love with them, and people look at your bag and they're just like, oh, I have a bunch of FD3s and I got a bunch of T-birds.
Yeah, it sounds like all I need, really.
The dream. So I think especially with you having that big arm and not being able to air it out, it's a great thing for our listeners to hear of, like, man, I just want to sound clip you saying, yeah, I throw 425, 450. And then next sound clip, I don't get to throw distance drivers that often. So
Yeah.
the amount of times that I have to try to teach that to my students is rough. So thank you, Colby. Your paycheck's coming in the mail, man.
You're welcome.
Let's jump down to putters, and we'll stop at approaches on our way, because you've got 3 discs in your bag that flirt that line of mid-range or putter, and those are, you got 2 zones and an A2.
Yes. So
What they doing?
my 2 zones, one's in soft plastic, so it's a lot straighter. If I throw it pretty much like 80%, it'll like flip up and turn and then come back at the end. And then I have a Z Flex zone, which for a zone is the plastic's a little bit more straight. So it still fades at the end, but for the most of the flight, it's pretty straight. And then my A2 is kind of like what I replaced my Justice with, because my Justice got too flippy. It's just super overstable, and I feel it's a lot faster than a zone, even though like the numbers are the same. Like I can on backhand throw it a lot further than I can throw a zone.
Okay. What plastic is your A2 in?
It's in 400.
Okay. Awesome. So have you ever thrown an A2 in any other plastic than the 400?
No, it's a pretty new addition to my bag.
Okay. Do you throw, so for the zones and the A2, are they both thrown forehand, backhand?
The zones I don't really throw backhand a whole bunch, but all of them forehand, and then the A2 out there backhand.
Okay. Yeah. If you find that 400 plastic A2 to be good, Brad, have you had any experience throwing an A2?
Yeah, just not really like a lot. I can't remember if it was an A2 or A3 that I threw now. Maybe it was, I threw a bunch of beat up A2s, I believe, at the Battle for Bedford. There's a couple in the used bin, and like I fell in love with them, and then my youngest son fell even more in love with them and bought all 3 of them. So it's a very good disc. It did remind me a lot of the zone, because I just mainly threw it forehand, and these were beat in, so I can't really say exactly what a new A2 off the shelf would do, but these are all in 350 plastic, and they felt really good, and they're a little bit more shallow, I feel like, than the zone.
Yeah. To me, my favorite version of the A2 is actually the 750, which is pure cheddar. Like that thing is so beefy. Like it is the cheese on the bread, to borrow that phrase.
Oh,
so
good.
I would definitely suggest, Colby, if you end up beating that 400 in, because I know 400 plastic does beat in pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Then check out a 750 as well, for an alternative. I'd be willing to bet that the rotation of like the 450 or the 400 and the 750 could push that crystal or the Z Flex out.
Yeah,
in that
I can
zone.
see that.
So, okay, so then we drop down to, you got several putters down there. You have some throwing putters and some putting putters. Walk me through what's the putting putters, what's the throwing putters.
So my two putting putters are my Rainmakers. I have some prototype Flex 3 Rainmakers. And then I have a Glow P2 and then a Sky God. My Glow P2 is really straight for a Glow P2. It's a Glow C-Line P2, a really old one, and it's really straight. I'd say maybe like straight to understable.
Okay.
And then my Sky God's just basically like the zone backhand. Yeah, I think that's all my throwing putters.
Okay. So you don't really have a necessarily like understable putter to throw. Your Glow P2 is probably the most understable option you got there.
Yeah, I forgot to include I have a Sonic, but I can't say I use that on the course a whole bunch, but
Okay.
I do use it to like warm up and stuff.
I respect that. I'm telling you, dude, as part of the lid throwing gang, Brad's made a choice. It's a choice to be part of the Dillo gang, but they like when you are throwing them, the more you warm up with it. I don't know how long you've been warming up with it, but like when you get on that course, just take it with you one day and be like, hey, you see that like 100-foot throw in shot, and you're like, oh yeah, I threw that to my buddy while we were warming up, and you just. And when it goes in, I'm telling you, it'll never leave your bag again. Just give it a try. Give it a try. When you do it, like you can throw your hands up in the air and be like, darn that Robbie guy. He got me.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to try it out.
Yeah, it is a blast. And plus, I'll tell you, you instantly get strokes on your card, because when they see that happen, the odds of them making their next putt, so low. Like so low. Big putts for days. So we talked about all that. Let's talk mid ranges. That is what we had Brad go and try today. But before we get into what Brad tried, you do have two mids in your bag, and they're both mids that have a special place with Brad. So I
Yes.
think this is going to be one of those episodes that I just like very thankfully get to sit back and chill and like watch you two go. You've got a Nebula and a Buzz.
Yes,
You have
yes,
the
I do.
people's mid. What do you love about the Nebula?
Well, what I love about the Nebula is the size, really. I'm a big putter thrower. I mean, putters go so far that usually I'll just go from putter to fairway, but I do throw a mid every now and then. But I do love the size of the Nebula, for sure.
I love a lot about the Nebula. We talk about my Vulture all the time, but it kind of has the same flight as my Vulture, like that, like very straight with a reliable fade at the end that I love, and I feel like I can crank on the Nebula a little bit. I use it a lot if I don't have a lot of room or I have to do a step out, like no run up shot. I feel like I can get that crank and pull on it, and it's not going to turn over on me, and it has a reliable fade. I also like. Does your Nebula have like a rough bottom of the disc? Is it kind of like?
Yeah, it does. It is a little unusual.
Yeah,
But
I like that
I
too,
do
because again, I feel like I have some grip.
Yeah, I do enjoy the feel of it. But it is just a little odd when you first touch it.
Yeah. So for you, is a Nebula just like pretty straight the whole way, or does it have some fade for you too?
Well, I like to throw most of everything on hyzer. So I'll throw it on hyzer, push pretty straight on that hyzer, and then reliable fade at the end. Just pretty similar to how you throw it.
Okay, cool. And then the Buzz. So is the Buzz going to be like pretty understable for you, or is it the more neutral slot?
It is, I'd say, straight to understable for sure. I really like it for forehands. I'll like throw it on a little bit of hyzer on forehand, just go dead straight. For backhand, if I'm trying to crank it, it'll turn, but not really like turn and burn.
Right. Okay. What plastic is your Buzz in?
It is 2020 Tour Series from,
Okay.
it was like the Page Pierce Buzz.
The Z Swirl, I think
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, it's Z Swirl or something like that.
Interesting.
It's
Do
the
you?
one just says like Pierce.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is
Is that
it.
those? Okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. Now, have you thrown other Buzzes, or is like this is the one Buzz you grabbed and you loved it and you just kept it in?
I had another Z Buzz that I was really liking. Like I said, I really like that straight forehand shot for like when
Hmm.
I'm scrambling.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Did
about
you
my extent.
was the swirl? Did you find it just to be a little bit more like overstable, so you could crank on the forehand a little bit? Is that why you like that plastic over the Z?
Well, I like it because it looks pretty for sure.
Fair. That's also fair.
Um, but I would say it flies pretty similar to that Z one I had. This one's
Hmm.
pretty old and beat in, so
Yeah, I got you. So the mids that Robbie had me throw today are like a very interesting spot for you, because really with your putters, other than your Glow P2, you don't really have like an understable option per se. And even
yeah.
like when we go up to your fairways, there's a huge gap between your putter, your throwing putters, and then really your passion and undertaker are really your understable options up there. And really just the
Hmm.
passion is that really understable option.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, just from looking at your graph, Rob and I were talking a little bit before we had you jump on. I know the reason that I kind of like struggled initially when I was like building a bag. I wanted to throw really far. I wanted to throw hard and far. And then I was like, well, I really need some approach shots. So then I started with the zone. And it took me a while to figure out my mid ranges. And I have actually a majority of my bag now are mid ranges because I'm trying to learn like a little finesse, you know. And I feel like what's cool about like all the mid ranges is, being the speeds that they are, they match my arm speed a little bit better. So I don't have to throw them all like super hard, and they all do very different shots with like 70% power, and really concentrating on that flick at the end and making sure that you're getting the proper rotation on the disc is a skill I'm trying to work on. And it seems like maybe, and again I'm kind of assuming a little bit, is that like the finesse shot, like maybe something you're struggling with and or just trying to work on in that mid-range approach category?
Yeah, I'll say my mid game is definitely my weakest. I just don't have a lot. I don't throw it very often, but
Hmm.
definitely the finesse is something I'm lacking.
Yeah, and I think the hard part about mid, and you said it earlier, which is, if you're throwing, throwing a driving putter, right? You're throwing a putter off the tee. If you need a little bit more distance, you don't have the confidence in your mid, so you're like, I'm just going to go up to the tee bird, and that's what I'm going to
Hmm.
choose, or I'm going to go up to the undertaker. So you're really missing that confidence there. And I think a little bit of it is like you again the finesse, right? You don't really need the finesse with those discs because you can just kind of throw them harder, and they what they do. So what Robbie had me throw today, and he didn't tell me this, but I'm guessing this is what he wanted you to take away from like my throwing. These I threw an M4 today, um, in 500 plastic, and then I threw a Buzz SS as well. So both, it's funny because the Buzz SS was really, I added it to the bag after, I started buying discs. I didn't know anything. I bought like Raptors, and I had no business throwing Raptors and Zeus's and things like that. And I really started researching and listening. And I was like, okay, well, I need something understable. I like my Buzz. At the time it was a little stable for me. So I threw a Buzz SS in, and I threw a Buzz SS for a long time. Again, some of that like subconscious confidence between a Buzz and a Buzz SS, they feel very similar. So it was easy to like kind of experiment with that. But what's interesting about these now, and having some of the finesse is like, now I have a hyzer flip shot that I can throw with this Buzz SS and the M4. Now I can throw like a nose up Annie that kind of like gives me that big right turn. So I think what he's going for with these discs that he had me throw is, these are discs that you can add to your bag that's going to teach you some of that finesse and some of the feel that you're kind of, already familiar with. Robbie, am I off base, or is that kind of what you're going for here?
No, I mean, pretty much spot on. That's the only question that I would ask, like before, because I want to ask Brad a few questions about his time in the field.
Hmm.
Was so when you have like you're stepping up to a shot, Colby, that is a like slow turning right like hole. I'm assuming, are you
Hmm.
right-handed?
Yes, yes, I am.
Okay, so slow turning right hole. Are you just stepping up and trying to work a soft forehand, like maybe put the buzz on even more hyzer and like hope it stands up a little bit and doesn't fade out as much?
Um, on a right turning hole.
Yeah, we'll say not like hard right hook, not a big
Yeah.
like hyzer where it'd be an obvious like, oh, I'm throwing a FD3 or a Raptor forehand.
Mm-hmm.
But that like it's a soft bend to the right.
Well, if I can't smash a zone there, and I have to throw it back in, I guess I would go to my glow P2 and just give it a little bit of angle so to like hold. But that I guess that's the shot I'd use for a hole like that.
Okay. So with the P2, still like the beauty of the, like hitting that hard power. So what the big reason that I love discs like this, and especially it's why I didn't go all the way down to like a, oh man, it's the disc that you love, Brad, that we did in like episode 2, uplink.
Yep.
So I didn't want to go all the way down to an uplink because I thought, okay, Colby, you got a bigger arm for an uplink. That is, it's flippy for sure. But like I'm throwing an origin in that slot and I throw 25, 30 feet shorter than you. And at times I have to be careful with the origin, having it turn over too much for me. So the uplink, not that a disc, I'm a firm believer no disc is too understable for someone. It just requires some touch. But with you already having the buzz in your bag, having an A2, these were routes of familiar-ish plastic. Okay. And like Brad mentioned, that subconscious confidence. But there's something about, especially if you're playing wooded golf, letting a disc naturally do what it wants to do in these actually understable discs. I think so often players, especially with big arms, can throw, just take the stability chart and be like, if it ain't neutral, I ain't throwing it. Like neutral is understable for me. And I make neutral understable by just being a hoss and ripping into it. But I'm sure in the woods that has come back to bite you many times.
I can agree. You get some outrageous kicks when you throw hard.
That's the truth.
Yeah. Sometimes you've hit a tree like first available and ended up next to the basket on a 300-foot hole. And you're like, yeah, calculated, game on. So that is, with that being said, like that's why I want to see these discs fly. So Brad, when you were throwing them, thinking in that like naturally understable, did you feel any natural understability with those discs? And if so, which kind of shined in that category?
Yeah, so just pure releasing on as flat as humanly possible. The Buzz SS was definitely the naturally understable. It would turn every time for me. M4 was just laser beam straight for me, but the Buzz SS definitely took that more turn at the end.
Okay. So before we hit record, you had mentioned something along the lines of like, you felt like the M4 provided more shot opportunity. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, and I only say that because again, the Buzz SS really is just it's just it's just an understable mid, right? I didn't feel like I had a lot of shots I would throw with it. The M4 has like this little touch of stability at the end, like as much stability as a neutral mid range can have. But what was cool is it would hyzer flip up and it wouldn't want to turn. It would just hyzer flip up and go straight. It would, if I did like an Annie, like a nose up Annie, it would like turn to the right the whole time. And at the very end, as it slowed down, it would like actually turn back or fade back a tiny bit almost to neutral. If I needed that big shot and come back to neutral around something, it could do that. I felt like a flat shot that just like straight shot is very versatile. And I even threw it on forehand a few times just for fun as I was like kind of pitching it back up to where I was throwing from. And it would actually like stand up because I throw my forehands on hyzer and it would flip up to flat and just kind of push straight. And then, so I don't know. Again, I don't like need that shot per se, but I think it would be interesting because I always believe that if you can have a disc in your bag that has like multiple shots versus a disc in your bag for a one shot, I think it's just like a space like way more well utilized.
Yeah. So Brad, I'll ask you this: knowing that Colby is he said he throws everything naturally on hyzer. When we're talking about this slot, how does that kind of influence your thought on your suggestion for either of them?
You know, initially I thought the Buzz SS, but like just hearing how he throws everything else and how the other discs react to his arm speed and things like that, I think the M4 is probably a better option. Like I'm picturing you like in Charlotte at a wooded course, you know, you're stepping up and you need to go like 300, 350. And you can just like probably like the same, like very, I don't know, very easy shot, like without a lot of like umph into it that I use my uplink for. I feel like an M4 is probably that for you, where it will just like kind of stand up for you and go straight through these like wooded gaps versus like the Buzz SS. I don't know. I'm worried to be like too understable for you. I feel like you wouldn't like it.
Yeah. Colby, have you thrown an M4 or a Buzz SS before?
I've thrown my friend's M4 before, but his were super beaten. Buzz SS, I've never thrown before.
Okay. Yeah. So, with that being said, Brad, I don't want to cut you off by any means. Are there like anything else that you like while you were throwing it, you were shocked or surprised by either of these discs?
No, I mean, I think they're like kind of a staple disc, right? There was nothing like unusual, I don't feel, about them. The only other thing I'll note is the Buzz SS did fly farther. Again, this is why flight numbers are just kind of a guideline, right? Like, because technically the M4 has more glide, but the Buzz SS flew consistently farther for me every time, like by 50 feet farther. So that's kind of just an interesting note I'll put in there for everybody.
Yeah. Was it so the 50 feet, did you feel like they were going about the same height, or did you feel like, man, it just literally like the Buzz SS just came out of my hand and just exploded?
No, they were like same height, same like direction. No, I don't know. I don't know what it is. The Buzz SS just went farther. Again, could be because I'm more comfortable. I guess one other thing I'll say is like plastic feel wise, like the M4 doesn't feel like amazing for me, but I just don't tend to like the shape of the rim on any disc, not just the M4, just any of them. It's just I will say this though about the 500 plastic. It was like extremely wet. You could probably still see the precipitation on this disc. Maybe it's really bright, but it was wet out there. But I did not feel like I was going to lose the M4 out of my hand. So that's definitely a pro to mention. Although it is more of like a Star plastic almost. It does have a little bit more grip than Star. So for whatever it's worth.
That's fascinating because I would definitely. Their 500 is very much one of their premium plastics. So that's interesting to note for listeners let us know in the comments
Yeah, try it out. And then I think one other thing I'll say about Prodigy just very quickly is like the more new Prodigy we're feeling as it's coming in the warehouse, like even just when I started in disc golf, it's not been that long. Prodigy had kind of like a bad reputation on some of their plastic, like the chalkiness. Some people like it, some people hate it, but like like the molds were kind of sharp on like the bevels and stuff. But the more and more new plastic comes in, the better it feels. I mean, some of it feels very like really incredible, like the new like FX3s and things like that. Like any of that new 400, 500 plastic feels amazing. So if you had a bad taste with Prodigy before, people listening, like definitely try it out. And like this M4 is no exception. I mean, it feels great as far as plastic.
I get that. Well, Colby, we always leave this up to you, man. We have suggestions, we have ideas, but the ball is in the ball. This is a disc golf podcast. The disc is in your corner, my man. Is there either of those that sounds a little more interesting for you to possibly try and come back and give us some feedback on?
Well, I think I have to go with Brad's suggestion and go with the M4. I mean, the Buzz SS is definitely more understable. It's more of a shot that I'm missing. But if the M4 can fill that slot for me, I think why not go with that?
I think what I'd like to do, Robbie, it's very atypical of what we do. I think I'm going to send Colby both of these because I'm just like very curious to see what they fly like. I think if you're willing to and you're working on the finesse shot, maybe the Buzz SS will work for you. I'm just personally worried it's going to be too understable. I think with your arm, you might be able to make the M4 fly like the Buzz SS flies from me, if that makes sense. But I would like you really to try both, and I think that's valuable. I mean, we cater a lot to listeners that throw a lot like me. You definitely don't throw like me. And I think there's also people that listen that are like you, right? You said you've listened to every episode. Thank you for that. But here you are, right? And I think that can maybe speak to others, that are throwing more like you, like, hey, which one actually did match up? So this is kind of an experiment, different way of doing things, episode 27. And I think the big thing is, Colby, would you be willing to come back on and talk about that, your experience with both of them, and just kind of letting people know like how it ended up for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to come back on and talk about my experience.
I think it's
Awesome.
awesome.
Yeah, I mean that is like the heart of this. Truly is. We want to make sure that we are. When you're listening to this podcast at the end of you chill with us for an hour on Fridays or whenever you listen to us, that you are learning and hopefully approaching your bag a little differently, becoming a bit better. And so, Colby, that's exciting for us to have people on like yourself that teach a new audience. So yeah, come back with your teaching shoes on, man.
All
It'll
right,
be a
I'll
blast.
definitely.
And hopefully, you're throwing that Buzz SS, and then that other disc crap guy in your area, MJ, he's like, oh man, maybe I should get a Buzz SS or I should get an M4. I'm just kidding. He's not going to get an M4. But
Yeah.
anyways, well, Colby, dude, thanks for coming on, man. Hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to having you on a future episode, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a great honor.
Thanks, man. We appreciate you.
Brad, bro, we are. Oh, episode 27. We just went off the rails, my man.
Yeah, just all kinds of crazy.
I'm asking all sorts of invasive questions about this man's playing career.
His morals.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, like basically what I was at. Are you a bagger or not?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was like, okay, this is getting like some deep rooted psychology here. So
No, I'm just kidding. He's not a bagger. And
no.
if you are one of those people that plays down to like chase the title, good on you. That is a level of competition that I personally do not hold. And if that's what keeps you motivated in tournaments, keep on keeping on with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Brad, man, I am so curious to how these discs are going to fly for him.
Yeah, me too. I like to. I don't know. Again, we don't talk to a whole lot of people that throw as far as he does and like has the arm speed that he does. So it'll be good, kind of like a experiment and with some results, so we can kind of cater to some of our like recommendations, and hopefully we'll have more and more people as they listen. We'll be getting to that level or at that level, and we'll be on. So again, we want to help everybody, whether you're like fairly new or you can throw a disc 300 or 450 feet. So
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the dream. But one of the best ways and the reasons we're able to cater to this is because of foundationdisc.com. So, Brad, what's new in the warehouse?
yeah, we have several things coming out this week. So the Iron Samurai 4 just dropped yesterday when we're filming this on Thursday this week. Let's see, Trilogy dropped several discs this week as well. So those are live on the site. I think we have a few Raptor Eye Sake Bomb Slammers left by some weird coincidence. So grab that, the championship one that they dropped. So look at that. We have Opto Ice Chameleons. The Trust came out in Royal Orbit, so that's pretty cool. And the Vandal and Air Plastic. So we have that as well. Phoenix from Mint came out, kind of like their Firebird. Personally, I think it feels way better than a Firebird, but I don't know how it flies yet. I haven't thrown it. I kind of don't have any reason to be throwing something that overstable personally.
Fair.
And MVP, we're working hard to get all our MVP restock up. So I mean, we have glow MVs, regular MVs, soft MVs, proxies, some glitches going up, uplinks, kind of like just a general restock of a lot of MVP stuff that has been out. Again, thank you all. We can't keep it in stock, so it's coming back up probably Friday. You'll see that. You'll probably also see some like TI Raptors and some cool stuff like that go up from Discraft on Friday as well.
Have y'all gotten your Discraft shipment for like this section? I'm sure y'all are on like a different Discraft shipment than the rest of the world.
Yeah, so that's the TI Raptors came in. We have some Buzz OSs, so the other end of the Buzz spectrum is in there as well. Some Jawbreaker Challengers. I'm trying to think. There's a few other ones as well, and obviously we still do have some crazy tough UV Buzzes left. And if you haven't thrown one of those, make sure you grab them. They moved quicks on the weekend, and they're still continuing to fly out. I saw a bunch of them. Jason packed up a bunch of them today. So,
dude, yeah, I'm not sure if y'all got any of the new ESP Stings or not. There
Not
was, yeah. So I'm sure y'all will be getting some, and y'all. Let me tell you, I have talked up the Sting. I've talked up the Sting more than any other Discraft mold that I've ever thrown in my life. And I messaged Bob Julio and Wes Shinovar, and I said, yo, where am I supposed to get my hands on some ESP stings? And they were like, it's an ace race thing. We got some stock runs every now and again, yada, yada. And then here we are, a month or two later, and these ESP stings are out. Now, I'm not trying to take credit for that. I'm not trying to put credit on the guy that introduced me to the sting. But y'all, we need to buy them now so that they keep making them because they look beautiful. Guys, it's insane.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
when the sting hits the website, foundationdisc.com, make sure you go check it out. Thank you again to Foundation Disc for supporting this podcast, making all this possible, and just having so many good discs so that we can remember if it's good.
Keep it in the bag. We'll see you all for episode 28 next week.